Becoming a regular at this place. I don't know when anyone saw me in the last couple of years that have been here. A bit less swearing this year. For those that weren't here, my talk last year was getting shit done. And it had quite a lot of expletives in, quite a lot of use of the word shit, to be honest. So this year I decided to do something a bit different, kind of look forward, because you guys will be doing the things that are coming up in 20 years or so time. Over the next 20 years. And if I look back over the 20 years I did in the games industry before joining the University of Chester, so many things changed and I saw so many things. Now this is kind of an extract from a much longer talk I did, which was basically 100 years of games, where I started as the first came out, but I'm not going to bore you with all the old stuff because that isn't so relevant with you. So we're going to start it today and look forward. Okay, so what we've done, in 40 years or so, we've gone from this. My original talk, I went right back to these kind of oscilloscope games. Hopefully you all can recognise some or most of those. You know, your Pac-Man, your Wireframe, Star Wars game. They had a cabinet of that down at EGX just a month or so ago. It was fantastic. I blew up the Death Star a few times, loved it. Reminiscing on these things, Defender, Space Invaders. And we've reached kind of this point at the moment. And to think we've gone through 40 years and the change that has come between those two is quite phenomenal. The graphical fidelity has reached the point of cinematic, and things that don't come across in slides is we have surround sound nowadays, we have VR of course, just been coming onto the scene, although it's not a new technology, it's new to gaming, and lots of kind of nice new things, and everything is shiny. And I think some people perhaps of your age don't realise this isn't quite the norm. To people like me, this is magic. You know, it really is magic to be able to play stuff like this. But where are we going? What's next? And obligatory Star Trek The Next Generation reference in the bottom right, the holodeck. We have things like Magic Eye, I think that came from the top right. Microsoft's concept of the kind of Magic Eye kind of equivalent. I forgot the name of it actually right off the top of my head. And maybe we'll have holograms. So I'm going to look at the kind of perspectives of the next 20 years and kind of point out where you might be able to corner the market and be able to get into roles and look forward to things that you will be able to do and you will be able to shape. Have a quick look at today's trends at the moment. You know, I've mentioned graphical fidelity. We are pretty much photorealistic. We're maybe not quite there. Still nowadays you have to drop games into a photorealistic mode to get the full experience, but we're not far off. To all intents and purposes, you know, if you watch a modern developed game being played, you can be convinced you're watching a movie to a certain degree. So graphical fidelity, you know, 4K graphics, as much as the eye is going to need, you know, all the colours you need, and fidelity, as I've mentioned before, is not just about graphics, it's about sound. We have 100% accurate sound reproduction, we have surround sound, and if you spend the money, you can buy things like cockpits that move and stuff like that, surround TVs and decent VR systems. We're currently in what I call the 8.5 generation. So we've had 8 generations of consoles, and we've had this refresh of both the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, kind of new versions that are backward compatible with the old ones, run the same games. So we have had that increase in fidelity, in capability of the machines. The number of years between generations has started to slow down. Anyone that's built a games console, not a games console, a games PC in the last few years will realise it's still fine nowadays, unless you really push it. The curve has started to come down on the kind of necessary improvements. And this is because we've reached basically realism. Obviously we've had a few changes, new things come along. Nintendo Switch has brought portable gaming up to the level of pretty much AAA. I still think it's quite amazing that you can, you know, sit there 1 minute playing on your console, on the TV, pick it up and go and continue to play that game in basically the same fidelity portably. So obviously they built it to use on the toilet. So it's like kind of, you know, I wonder how many hours have been wasted. It's a statistic I don't really want to know, to be honest. Okay, eSports is a very big thing at the moment. That's a figure I picked out for $109 million apparently in prize funds so far this year. That was actually about 4 weeks ago I got that stat, so it would have gone up. And will we be seeing Olympic recognition soon? But eSports is established, and these pictures actually amaze me, because when I was growing up, I'd watch my grandfather struggle with a video recorder, and I wondered at what point am I going to reach something I don't really understand, I don't really get. And so far I've been okay, but I'm on the fringes of it with eSports. I don't quite get why people will sit and watch people play games. And my son does it. He's 14. He sits there on the Xbox, and I think, oh, are you playing whatever? I don't know. No, I'm watching someone else play it. Okay. At least you're not out talking things and things like that. Okay. So, and this is linked to this online social gaming thing. You know, watching people play Fortnite on Twitch and stuff like that. I don't quite get it. I can see how popular it is. I actually quite suppose that the figures were this low, actually. The top Switch streamers are only getting this on average viewers, but that is real-time viewers. So I suppose the actual number of subscribers they have are into the millions. And I'm kind of impressed you can make money doing this. Well done on those people. You know, I seem to have spent my entire life watching everyone else make money. And wondering, damn it, I wish I'd had that idea. So it was like kind of, you know, good on these guys. They've found a way of making it work. Okay, what else have we got? What I would call a cultural acceptance of games. We've reached that point that geek is the new cool. You know, I think we're at that point nowadays where when I was growing up, you were the kind of the nerdy kid on the Spectrum, the ZX Spectrum or the Commodore 64 or whatever you had. And it wasn't really culturally accepted. Your parents were saying, oh, you're just playing games, you know. I know parents do that nowadays, but it's like kind of, it is in our culture. We see references in things like kind of Strange Things. This is just a board game with Fallout being made from that. And it's that kind of thing. We're seeing this crossover. I mean, board games in themselves have become a massive resurgence. I'm not going to talk about board games today, but that could be another thing of the future. I don't know whether it's going to burst that bubble, but at the moment, it's a lot of money in board games. Pokemon Go, I come from Chester, obviously. And in Chester, we've had a few of these Pokemon Go events, and it's quite surreal to be driving around and suddenly come across about 100 people all chasing, I don't know, Pikachu or whatever it is. I'm not too into it. I played it, I wrote a few blogs about it. I don't quite get it. I understand it, you know, I understand why. Strange Animation, and of course Ready Player One. Now Ready Player One is actually one of the inspirations for this talk. So it was very much a case of a film that asked that question, what is gaming going to be like in 20 or 30 years' time? And I think they answered it very well, actually. And they answered one of my burning questions at the end of the film, and I'm not going to spoil it very, very well. So that's where we are today. So tomorrow, and how can you shape it? What is going to be the things that you can get involved in and look out for and jump onto these trends? They're my predictions. I'm going to do 10 predictions of what I think are going to change. I noticed on the programme there's somebody else talking about the future of games after lunch. So we seem to have two of us have picked the same topic. Last year, we were all asked, like, kind of, can we do things about getting into the games industry? And I still think there's plenty of that in the programme. And then I found I was one of only about one of six people doing the same talk, effectively. So this year, I come up with something different and found someone else is doing basically the same talk. But never mind, hopefully we'll give different insights. I'm first, anyway. Be interesting whether we say the same thing, so I will come and sit and watch that one. Okay, so prediction one, easy one, this one. VR and AR is going to continue to grow. VR is not new. I went to a cinema complex. Actually, it was not far away from here. It was Hanley Cinema Complex. It was brand new then, down at Festival Park, because I went to Keele University. So we're talking early 90s, went down there and they had this thing called virtuality. It was basically an arcade version of VR. You put your pound in, you sat down, you put your headset on, and you had a dogfight with someone sat next to you. Very crude graphics, but it was quite cool, to be honest. You know, virtuality, it worked. It's not new, but it's come back. And it's come back with more of a vengeance than we've seen so far, because finally the technology can put a decent enough screen in the front of there. Oculus Go obviously releasing either imminently or, oh no, we've got them in our place, so we know they exist. It's portable now. Magic Leap, I put 2019 in question mark because they're famous for being very delayed in what they're doing, and they're promising an awful lot more than I think they can deliver. But the concept is there. So it's an easy to prediction, that one. Headsets can only get smaller and more powerful, more technology and things like that. But to back up VR and AR, prediction two, we're going to see this increased use of haptic feedback. And we've seen this in Ready Player One. They showed this to us. This is a concept called the Tesla suit concept. It's not, as far as I know, linked to Tesla the company, which is quite interesting. But it's all to do with magnetic feedback. You can feel the action. So if you're playing Call of Duty, you will feel when you get shot. Maybe not quite to the extreme. You know, that's real reality. Join the army if you want the real experience. But VR treadmills exist. You can play with this. The army use a lot of these, actually. They've got this concept of infinite conveyor belts. It's basically conveyor belts that are on turn on a conveyor belt. So you can run in any direction, and they've got kind of VR goggles, and you can experience kind of the theatre of war. Very, very good thing. But this is going to be something that's going to come in. The early adopters of people who've got more money are going to want to experience their VR and AR experiences a lot more realistically. I can't actually predict exactly what will come along, But one thing I can do is apply Rule 34 to prediction number 2. And sex will sell the VR revolution. I can pretty much say that will happen. It is already happening. I was in my office yesterday and I typed in sex VR into my browser. Not a good idea. Not a good. Where do you think I got the picture from? So how says it? And I'm sure some of you are now thinking, these slides are going online later. We'll get rid of that censor because I bet he's not edited it. You've got a dirty mind, you have. Okay. Okay, but it's a valid point. You know, when we had things, I referred to a video recorder. There was, maybe very few of you will know this, but there was basically a battle between 2 different formats of video recorders. There was the VHS and there was the Betamax. Betamax was backed by Sony, VHS was backed by JVC and some other people, I think. And comprehensively, VHS won, even though it was not the better format. And the reason they won, Sony would not let pornography onto their tapes. And that is why they won. And I think we've seen that, you know, the internet has basically turned into cats and pornography. And it's the same thing. We will see this. So any of you are not too squeamish about this, there could be a very good market in there. And given from the results that came back on my search, there already is quite a big market for it. Okay, prediction number 3. I said cultural acceptance is here, but I think we will see mainstream acceptance. Gaming will become something you all do all the time. So there is a statistic, and I'm going to just kind of see if anyone knows it. Okay, what do you think in the US is the biggest proportion of gamers? What category of people? Anyone want to hazard a guess? Yeah?
Mobile gamers.
Sorry?
Mobile gamers.
Mobile gamers is kind of right. I'm thinking more age groups and things like that, yeah?
30 to 40 females.
Yeah, that's the one. 30 to 40 minutes. You probably saw my saying this last time. Most people will say 18-year-old boys, you know, or 16 to 18 playing Call of Duty on their Xboxes. They're actually quite a small proportion of gamers in terms of the amount of games that are played. It is mobile gamers, and funny enough, it's 30 to 40-year-old females. Because it's housewives and things that are playing things like Candy Crush. And that is where the market is. Now, arguably, you could say we're already there. We have situations like this, where everyone is just sat around in basically a social environment, and yet we're all staring at our phones. I'm quite reassured that I can only see 1 or 2 people. See, you've timed that badly, mate. Looking at their phone right now. But you do see this, and I think it's actually becoming culturally accepted. Beyond culture, it's becoming mainstream. Everyone's going to play games. Why is that? Because I grew up with games, and I'm 40-something, and yeah, okay, I am under 50, but not by very much. And I view gaming as just something I do in my life. So we're now getting there where most of the population has either played games before or is a gamer. Now, obviously I grew up in an age when not everybody was a gamer. Maybe 10, 15, 20% of us were. So we have come through that wave, and we are the ones that have been in games industries and things like that. But now you are all pretty much gamers. You know, not everybody, but it's not far off. And as that generation works its way through, and we lose the generation ahead of me, that aren't gamers because they didn't exist, they didn't grow up with them, we'll see it become a mainstream acceptance. I did find that quite interesting photo of everyone seems to be playing VR on a train. It's actually from a thing called the Train Jam. It's a game jam, but maybe we're not quite there yet. But again, funny enough, Ready Player One nailed it. I really should just show the movie, it would have been quicker. The idea being that film opens with a description saying, apart from eating and sleeping and working, all everyone does is play the Oasis, the game that's in that the movie. Okay, prediction number 4, gamification to enter every area. So we're starting to move aside from the big highfalutin concepts, and let's look at what will actually happen. Gaming will be everywhere. You will go to work, and it might have nothing to do with games, but you will still play some form of game. It's happening already. There are companies that are taking kind of training concepts and gamifying. You earn points by doing their training, and points mean prizes. We are actually doing a study at University of Chester as whether we can gamify the level 4 of our course. So instead of doing assignments, you will do things to win points. Interesting idea. We don't know whether it'll work. We haven't got approval from, you can imagine what the academic standards are saying to this. Ooh, they're a bit scary of that kind of thing at a university, but it's a study, we're going into it. But here's an example of health being used in gaming. Gaming. And I've got a really good example. It was a study done at a university where they did wargaming for an emergency. There's going to be a big explosion, how do we get the casualties? And they'd lay it all out on a table, lots of pieces of paper, lots of casualties, ORs, emergency beds and things, and they'd run the simulation, and everyone go, we've got 6 casualties, 6 pieces of paper would come in. One of them needs to go to the emergency room. Brilliant, move it to the emergency room. And they did this for years. Never, thankfully, had the emergency. Then some bright spark thought, let's build a VR version of this. Let's actually play it in VR. They built it, they ran it. The first thing, 6 casualties came in, we've got no room, stack them down the corridor. The next 6 casualties came in, great, we've got to move, one of the casualties emergency, needs to go to the emergency room. Oh, we can't get the trolley down the corridor. It's full of beds. And they only learnt that by doing it in VR. It was a VR game that they built, and they changed all their policies on the basis of that game that they wrote. So I put up the logo of Starship there. It's a company in Liverpool that's targeted this kind of area. And one of their early kind of policies was to try and invent games for markets that don't currently game, i.e. old age pensioners and things like that. I haven't actually seen what they've got up to, but this is where you could break into a market. Think about where games aren't being played at the moment and how can you sell games to them. Prediction 5 and 6 match quite nicely because some fidelity improvements will slow. We already see the concept of the kind of 8-bit retro graphics, 16-bit stuff, but this is obviously a modern game, either about to come out or out already. Dreams, and you can see it's a painterly concept. The idea being the graphics are not realistic anymore. I think it's Mike Bethel has came on his Twitter feed and said that in maybe 5 to 10 years' time, the cheap games will be the photorealistic ones. Because you'll be able to walk out with your phone and your camera and photograph your environment, and the engines will do everything for you. You will end up with a real model. I can download an app, will do that now. Put a little model on my desk, scan it with the phone, and I get a reasonably good photogrammetric model of it. I have to tidy it up, but I can get a 3D model. We do that now with Forza, for example. They take a van out to the track, laser scanners on the side of the van, drive around the track, 1mm accuracy of the entire track. Load it into the game, job done. The real games where you guys could end up working as artists, where there's going to be a lot of money put into, is the things that don't look like reality, like Dreams, where you have to have a bespoke artist that is going to create the effects and do the models that are non-realistic. So that's an interesting change that may happen. We've been driving all these years to photorealistic, we hit it, and now we change our mind. We want to go a different way. But on the flip side, ray tracing is going to become ubiquitous. So we obviously have the new NVIDIA RTX series cards that are out. If you're very rich, you can buy one now, or you waste your student loan on it, whatever you want to do. It always amazes me that I can't afford half the stuff my students can. They all rock up with these lovely Alienware laptops, and I'm like, what, seriously? What are you going to eat on for the rest of the year? But just a couple of pictures from obviously Battlefield 5 and the actual RTX demo that was run. That shouldn't say EGX actually, that should say GDC. The concept that ray tracing is going to come in, it's going to revolutionise the real graphics. We're going to see stuff that is so real you will not be able to tell the difference. To be absolutely honest, I've walked in on my son occasionally, he's playing FIFA, and I said, oh, you're watching a football game. And then you realise, no, actually he's playing that football game. So in some cases we're already there, but we will see that kind of realism come in. Everything will become far more real. This is one for your programmers out there. This is a market you can be continuing to work on. How can you continue to improve effects? I'm yet to be, you can do all this ray tracing, but unless you do this fire effect quite nicely, it doesn't matter how good your ray tracing is, it's not going to look good. Now, obviously that one does, but there's a lot of room for your kind of programmers and that in here. Number 7. Games will keep entering new territories. We're starting to see games that are non-traditional. Very successful ones like Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice has gone on to win a number of BAFTAs. That Dragon Cancer, it's a game about the guy dying from cancer. How do you do that? One Night Stand, a game about somebody waking up after one night stand. Really interesting concepts. You guys, just done the game jam, any of you? Got enough sleep to be able to get to this? Well done. That's where these concepts come from, these ideas, these new ideas. And these have been very successful in their own right. Sure, they're not selling AAA, Senua's Sacrifice has done quite well. They're not selling AAA massive millions, but they're making nice tidy sums for the developers and they're establishing them. So always think of a different market, a different concept, a different place to go. Prediction 8, gaming and social media will merge. Without a doubt. Facebook tried it, didn't quite manage to nail it because they just thought, we've got social media, we'll put some games into it. VR and AR will do this. This amuses me, this top right slide here, where you've got obviously a VR environment where people have gathered to look at photographs. Now, when I grew up, and you're old enough, my father would have a set of photographs that he'd take, and it was all on slides, and you'd gather around the slide projector as a family every 6 months or so and look at the photos, how things come around in a circle. You know, it's an interesting concept. But VR kind of interaction, gaming, simple ones, you can do it now, but somebody is going to nail this, and that's where the next tech billionaire is going to be. The replacement for Facebook will be based on this concept. Pretty much guarantee it. So maybe it's someone in here that will nail it, because basically the guy that did Facebook was in a university, the right idea, got it working better than anybody else, made his billions. Okay, Facebook is dying. Already has done, I think, in my opinion. Where is the next one coming from that's going to take over? It's going to be something like this. There's going to be a social space. It's not going to quite be the Oasis out of Ready Player One. That'll be a few more years down the line. Right, this is what I've called the evolution of augmented reality, massive ARMOs. I was thinking, great, I've invented something. And in 20 years' time, when everyone's using ARMOs, we have to look at, unfortunately, I searched for it and found someone had already turned it. So I can't claim that one. We've seen, obviously, Ingress evolve into Pokemon Go, and there will continue to be these. I know there's a Harry Potter variant coming out soon, or may already be out, that's basically the same game. But we will see this. You know, gaming will go into the real world. We're going to get massively multiplayer online games that are played in the real world. Especially when things like Magic Leap become ubiquitous. Google obviously tried it with the glasses, then realised their tech wasn't quite there yet. It wasn't ready for gaming. Magic Leap kind of is aimed at that. But sooner or later, we're going to have something that just looks like an normal pair of glasses, and you're going to have to be playing massively multiplayer games. And I'm thinking stuff like a zombie invasion happening around your campus. That you are all playing the game, and you're all enjoying beating off the zombies and things like that. Bad phrase. So... Told you, sex will sell. And it's like kind of, but there's the concept. You know, there's going to be something like that that's going to come in. There'll be multiple layers of this, these kind of real-time strategy games happening in AR around the world. We will start to blur the lines between reality and actuality. So I had to go and invent another one once I realised ARMOs existed, and I've come up with the EMO, the enormously multiplayer online game. Now, I remembered having this discussion back in Traveller's Tales when I worked there about 15 years ago. What if you had a golf game, and in that same world, there's a track going around it that people are driving their cars, the golf game's on the side, and there's a flight simulator game happening over the top of you? Will we ever reach that stage? Yes, I think so. We will end up with these enormously multiplayer online games where everything is happening. And if you are particularly inclined, you can take your F-22 Raptor and strafe the golf game. It will happen. It will happen. We will see games like that. Arguably, again, we are starting to see a few like that. Stuff like Rust and Fortnite are the precursors to this kind of concept. But I think we will see real gaming worlds, not just gaming environments that exist online that have a specific thing, but gaming worlds. Okay, so this is an area to be looking into. What happens if you do start merging all this together? Interesting idea. Okay, what we're doing? A couple of minutes left. Good job. I've hit the end point. Beyond 20 years. And this is where I get a bit speculative, of course. Today, if you're into your computing, you'll probably know there's a thing called the exascale era. And that basically means computers, by and large, are capable, if you build a big enough computer, to do about 10 to the 18 operations per second. One with 18 zeros after it. Big numbers, huge calculations, but still not massive. Look forward 50 years. Moore's law is this concept, everything doubles every 2 years, assuming it holds. No reason not to believe it. It's held so far. But everyone says we're going to reach the end of Moore's law in 10 years. The trouble is we've been saying it for 40 years. It's like fusion. And we will be into what's called the yotta-scale era. And this is a very big number. It's 3 with 25 noughts after it, basically. That's what it works out as. You double it enough times for 50 years, 25 times. That is enough power to simulate 100 million human brains. We will have true AI within 50 years. It may not be... I'll leave it to the theologians to decide whether they have souls and things like that, or whether they have consciousness, but you will be able to play against true AI players within 50 years. So some of you might be retiring at about the point you worked in a company that developed true AI to play against in the games. And that's going to be a fascinating time. We can keep going. What about true VR? What comes to the point where VR approaches real reality, actual reality? And again, out comes Star Trek The Next Generation, Inception, and from Ready Player One. The question happens, at this point, why do we stay in the real world? And there's a thing called Fermis Paradox. Fermis Paradox says, we are a developed civilization, we exist on a planet, and we can look out and see the stars around us. Why can't we see any other civilizations? None at all. What's the problem? And most people say Fermis Paradox is because they've blown themselves up, or whatever. or they've sublimed into another plane of consciousness. This is XKCD's take on it, that eventually humans develop so many cool things to do that they kill themselves anyway. But my concept is, more seriously, once you have true VR, if I was to offer you today a virtual reality environment that is better than everything you do here now, that allows you to do anything you want to do, play any game, any environment, any life you want to live, how hard is that going to be to resist? Is there anyone here that would resist that? Yeah, and it's the older people. Okay, and it's the older people. So therefore, you know, if we ever develop true VR that can plug into a brain, that's the end of human civilization, in my opinion. Good one to end on, end of human civilization. Is this the end of the world? What I'm saying is embrace the future, but remember to embrace the responsibility. You know, we may be looking at a scenario where games is actually the end of the world. And it's a nice depressing finish, but hopefully that's giving you some insight. I've already got people wanting to ask questions, which is lovely.
I was going to say, have you not thought we're already there already?
Oh God, yes. there's a lot of studies there's a really good Scientific American study, it was quite a long time ago, quite a few years ago, 15, 20 years ago, that sat down and said, if we are in a computer simulation, what are we looking for? And one of the concepts is granularity. I've got 2 questions in an order.
No,
Are you good? We're nearly out of time.
Yeah, we're pretty much out of time.
Okay.
So maybe do questions outside.
Okay, yeah. And they basically concluded we probably are. And that's really scary. Sorry to not give you much time to questions, but I'm more than welcome to hang around outside and ask questions.
Seems over.
Thanks, Rolf.
Thank you.